Paul Henry has been in the news, not just talking about the news in the last week or so, for some comments he made in the weekend in a New Zealand Herald interview. I think, albeit slightly uncomfortable, we should probably get to Paul Henry's words from the weekend so we know exactly what we're talking about. Part of the interview said this: "We were nearly finished lunch when his," Paul Henry, "attention was drawn to the breasts of the woman at the next table. The girl with the perfect titties," he said. "Am I right or am I right? No, I'm right. Perfect titties." Talking to a girl with entirely adequate titties, but she's decided to have lunch with someone with perfect titties. Right. The conversation then went on in the interview, you can look it up yourself, and there was another 8 times in the next couple of paragraphs where the perfect breasts of the lady next to him were mentioned.
Just say titties.
Breasts?
I like how you're doing this.
I'm pushing that word away.
Breasts.
Anyway, it's because we'll go to this later on, but a lot of females out there, especially female commentators, have actually mentioned the word uncomfortable, have mentioned the word creepy about using that word.
Yeah.
Not that it's a swear word per se, but very, very strange that you'd be in an interview, he works for MediaWorks, with the opposition,
Yeah.
and you go off on this rant about this perfect woman next door. And then I actually think almost the worst thing from that is that then his publicist started to talk about when the woman would lose her looks.
Yeah.
Very strange.
And it was a female publicist too, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is it? I didn't pick up on that.
I think it was a female publicist, which I found strange too. And for me, it's just so bizarre that he feels that he can talk about things like this that aren't going to end up in the paper, because everything is on the record when you're being interviewed with someone.
Do we know that? Do we know if that bit was on the record?
It has to be. It doesn't matter what you're doing when you're with the journalist is on the record.
Well, unless you say this is on the record.
Say off
but,
the,
no,
but that doesn't even matter.
But what you're asking is, did he think this would be left out?
Yes.
That's what we're wondering, and I would assume that he probably thought it would have been.
Yeah, maybe.
But
maybe not.
he's so outrageous. Like the
Yeah.
rest of that article was outrageous. I'm a genius. I'm the best thing that's ever happened. It was kind of crazy. Like I have worked with him, and he is actually an utterly charming. Like it sounds strange, but he is. Like when I first met him, he was like, "It's lovely to meet you." He was just all charm, and I did stuff on breakfast television with him, and we had a really good time and had good bants, definitely. And you know, he could say that to me in person, and I would actually be, or I may be outrageous on television, but I'd give it right back and tell him that his were far too saggy.
But it was because
definitely overripe.
He was kind of ogling a woman next door
was.
and having a conversation with someone else about it.
Yeah, and that is acceptable behaviour to be in front of somebody where it could end up that a whole lot of people know that he speaks like that,
Right.
or looks at women like that. I mean, actually, it was almost touching, some of it, because he talks about you'll end up with somebody who's got the, I can't remember what Rancho Mirage titties, but in your mind you'll be thinking of Palm Springs, but you'll end up with your Rancho Mirage, and that'll be actually quite nice. So it was almost touching in a way, but it was just disgusting the way that he sort of presented himself.
When you talk about Paul Henry and you mention the word titties and touching and another woman, I get incredibly uncomfortable in that triangle of words.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but he only, that's fine, but he only said a couple of words, didn't he, at the end of the day? I mean, it's not like, he didn't do anything though, did he? Like, I mean,
that doesn't matter, but you know, it's that locker room talk bull stuff.
Balderdash.
Balderdash. I mean, but what gets me about all of this is that he is supposed to present a face of intelligent discourse in the mornings. So the next interview that he had yesterday, he had Gerald Hope on, Olivia Hope's dad, who's there talking about the loss and you know the incredible loss to somebody who's just been in the paper talking about titties all weekend. It just is incongruous with the job that he's supposed to do.
But even, I mean, not above and beyond that, it's a very serious interview, but the next female interview he did, what was that female person thinking about? That woman sitting across the counter from him. If she was a young and attractive woman.
Yeah, or if she was a breast cancer survivor.
Right.
Or if she was a rape counsellor. You know, things like this, you just got to be really careful with the power of your words.
Yeah, that is true. What is slightly galling, though, is the holier-than-thou reaction from Brian Edwards, though. If we have a look at some of the things that he said, and I know that you've dutifully dotted them down. What does he say, Pat? Q15, my point is that I know about fame, if only in your own, around our own backyard. It's corrosive and corrupting. It turns mild-mannered men and women into monsters. Been there, experienced that, then one day you're overcome by some self-destructive impulse to smash it all down. Really? Is that not going just a little bit too far for a guy that said titties? Come on.
Well, but that was Brian Edwards writing a post about the corrosive nature of
I understand what it was, but it's a very holier-than-thou stance.
But he wasn't just talking about the titties, he was talking about the whole interview. And the thing about the whole interview, if you read the whole thing, you could sort of come away from it thinking he sounds depressed. He sounds like he's doing this job because he thought that he could, and he's doing a good job of it because he's a genius and he's amazing, but now he's a little lost, is what I took from that article.
The other interesting thing about this was the reaction by, especially many female
Yes.
commenters. Lizzie Marvelly, who is most well known probably in New Zealand still as a singer,
Yes.
but she's a social commentator and she writes blog posts and she's
a
becoming
fantastic feminist blogger, and she's just killing it.
She was due to be on Paul Henry the next day, and this is what she said. I was looking forward to returning to the panel on the Paul Henry show tomorrow morning, but in the light of his remarks, I don't feel it would be appropriate for me to be on the show at this time. So there's some...
Which is, yeah, absolutely her,
Yeah,
her
it's her
right
prerogative.
to, of course it is.
putting her money where her mouth is, so to
Yeah,
speak.
good on her. That's a good thing. What's the upshot of all of this? Nothing will happen to Paul, of course, and we're talking about him right now.
Exactly.
Do you think there's going to be more sets of eyeballs and sets of ears on Paul Henry Live or whatever the show's called in the morning?
Yeah, whatever
I
the
think
show's
there
called.
will be.
Personally, I wouldn't boycott it. I'd like to go in there and sit down with my perfect titties and have something to say to it.
Absolutely. See, you would like the right of reply
Yep.
for this particular article, and we know for a fact, because you told us off air, that you're an avid listener of his breakfast show in the morning. So
I do listen to Paul Henry at times. I have of recent times switched over to national radio, which I wake up to.
Yep.
But I enjoy him. He's a gifted and talented broadcaster. There's no question about that. I've been with him and seen him operate. I've worked with him in the radio industry.
Yeah, he's charming.
And I just got to think, brain fart. I mean, really, it's a bit like, you might not have seen the other video, but we talked about David Cunliffe another stage during this block of videos. What you say, how it gets interpreted, how it goes out there
That's very true.
matters.
Yeah, and how many Pinot Noirs you've quaffed.
Yeah. Well, I have
that's
to
in the
say
article.
there'd be a distinct taste of Pinot, I imagine, around that quote.
You've got to say that sentence really carefully, don't you?